Hello YouTubers, this is your channel Coding Animal Plus Plus, and welcome to your second tutorial in which I will be teaching you what a simple program looks like, and I'll also be teaching you what the initial code needed to build a basic program means. Before we continue guys, I want to let you guys know that this tutorial might take the longest just because I'll cover some code that if you're a beginner you might not be used to, and this code that I'll cover will be used in your next tutorials, so it'll just go by faster since I'll have explained it in this tutorial. And so just bear with me for this first video, first tutorial actually getting into C++, and enjoy it. Alright, let's get started by first opening up code blocks and creating a new project. Hopefully it doesn't take long to open. Okay, here, create a new project. Let's go to console application, click next, C++, and here this is where we'll name our project. Let's name it Hello World, and it's already saved. If you've seen our first video, it shows how I created this folder called C++ projects in my desktop, and this is where I'll be saving all my information. So click next, don't worry about this, click finish, and then go over here to sources, main, and let's get started here. The program C++ consists of two parts, the header and the functions, which are these two. Oh, why doesn't it have it? There. The pound include here allows us to include a library. The library I'll be covering for the tutorial for the next simple programs that we'll do will be this one, iOS stream, which means input output stream, which allows us to display things in the screen and also receive input from the user. And we'll be using this just because it's a very basic one, and it helps you accomplish the simplest tasks for C++. There's many other libraries that we'll use, but I'll cover those in different videos. The second thing on the header that we'll use is called the using statement. This makes it easy to access the library function. The library function that the using statement uses is standard, which is this right here, std. And what this function or what this statement allows us to do is to use a shortened version of the code needed to run the program. Next we'll talk about functions, and for this tutorial we'll just talk about the main function, which is this right here, this whole thing. All programs need to have this main function. Programs can have many functions, but they all need to have this function, which is the main function. When a program begins, it always starts executing at the main function, so it's necessary. Notice how this function has these two curly braces. Inside these curly braces, you write your instructions. One is to open, one curly brace is to open, one is to close, kind of like a little box. And inside this box you'll throw your instructions in there. A function runs and ends inside of these curly braces, so it's important to remember that. For example, if you see down here in this main function, this whole thing is a function. It says cout, and then it has these insertion operators, which you'll insert hello world. Then it has this end line, and here we can run it and it'll say hello world. But if we didn't have this right here, the using namespace std, then it'll give us an error, because that is meant to help us use this. It's meant to allow us to use this code, which is a shortened version of the longer code, and you'll see that there's an error down here. Cout was not declared. But if you didn't want to use using namespace, all you have to do is write standard in front of in front of cout and in front of end line, and then here it'll do the same thing and it'll display hello world. Of course, that's more typing, because let's say you had hundreds of thousands of lines of code, then you have to put std in front of everything. And so to avoid that, we just use namespace std, and we don't have to do that anymore. Just delete, and just use the simple and shortened version of the tool. Something I forgot to mention is that when a computer reads the program that you're typing, it reads from left to right, top to bottom, kind of like how we do when we read. So our first instructions that we gave the computer is to cout hello world, right? It's already read this, and it went inside this function, and it's now reading the first instruction that says cout hello world, and then it ends the line. Cout stands for console out, and hello world, since it's a text, you have to put it in quotation marks. It's just a standard thing. Many programs do it as well. So if you want to display something in text, you put quotation marks in it. This end line will just go to the next line. It's basically, the gist of it. No science to that. It's kind of like if you're writing in a piece of paper and you write hello world, then you'll just go down and start writing something else because you don't want to continue in that same line. And here, the semicolon, this semicolon is put after the end of any instruction that you give. C++. That is just a standard thing. That is, I'm not sure if this is the only computer language that does it, but it's a standard thing. You just end with a semicolon, and if you don't end with a semicolon, this is what happens. Let's run it, and there's an error. Expected semicolon before return. This is return, so semicolon, and it should run now. So you always need to make sure you put a semicolon. That's a common error that a lot of people make. The last statement that we write is the return statement. The return statement indicates that the function is done and lets us exit the function. We leave the code 0 there in order to signify no error. And after you're done writing the return statement, you just end with a semicolon, and you're done with this simple program. Well guys, that's the end of this tutorial. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Don't forget, if you have any questions, write them down below in the comments and I'll get to them as soon as possible. If you also want to show your support, go ahead and click the like button, and don't forget to subscribe.